some of it is rooted in real things. You know, that there was a lack of preparation. There were teams that were picked up late. There were hotels that were unprepared to take in these guests at these particular times. Was it a small minibus that picked up the Cambodia team? Yes, those are true. You know, you cannot make these things up. So there were certain things, and they would argue that, oh, come on, it's the first few days of a big event. You know, you're allowed to make these mistakes. I don't subscribe to that.
I think that's BS.
Welcome to Across the Line. Jing Jamlang and Chris Greatwich.
Hello, how are you, sir?
With you as always. And today we are talking about the SEA Games 2019. It's the 30th edition of the competition, and it's here in our home ground in the Philippines, and it's been a wild ride so far. We just had the opening ceremonies get underway, but of course the football has been ongoing for more than a week, Chris, and there's been so much to talk about. And today we're going to talk about the 5 things that have stood out to us so far.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's go through them. I mean, the one thing I want to really touch upon, I think the main takeaway that I've got from the first set of games is that football is alive. Football is alive and well in the Philippines.
And it feels good.
It feels good.
Yeah.
It does feel good. I looked at the turnout for Friday's game against Malaysia.
Yeah.
Packed house. You know, 6,500 people jammed into Rizal Memorial. They were served up an entertaining game.
Absolutely.
And now has sort of put us in the mix to potentially qualify from the group. Obviously, only taking 1 point from the first 2 games meant that really this was a must-win fixture.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, the elder statesman came up with the goods. Well, I'm not sure actually. Do you think it was his goal? What do you think? Initially,
I thought it was Amani's goal, as he had gotten the last touch. But you look at it, and they had credited to Stefan Schrock in the end for his clever delivery from the corner kick. It looked like he was going to do an outswinger, but he had cut it back in, and it swerved into the goal. And the goalie had gotten a touch to it, and Amani bundled it in with his body. So I thought Amani should get credit for that one.
You know, I happened to bump into Stefan Schrock on Saturday.
Really?
He was having some dessert with his family, and I told him it doesn't count. The goal does not count for him. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Okay, number one. At best, it's an under-22 goal if he wants the credit. It doesn't go on his record as a national team. I'm not having that at all. So that doesn't count. If he wants to claim it as a really clever bit of play, I'm not having that either. I'm seeing him misplace that pass many a time. So I think Amani should get the goal for putting the goalkeeper under some pressure. Really, it's a mistake from the goalkeeper. I don't really know what he's playing at with that delivery. He's got to deal with that better. But a historic win. Obviously, there were parallels with the SEA Games of 91. Which I think adds to the kind of the mystique of the result. And ultimately it puts us in a really good position, because going into that game, had to win the game. Managed to get the 3 points, which puts us now on 4 points, which is level with second place Cambodia. And only a win behind Myanmar, who obviously got 7 points. This podcast will go out post Thursday's game, so we have to be careful with our predictions here.
Sure.
Because we're either going to be prophets or we're going to land with egg on our face. But I think if we're able to get a number of goals against Timor without being too presumptuous, then I think we're in with a real chance of qualifying now. What's your sort of take on
I think so. I think we need to get as many goals as we can against Timor-Leste, and then Myanmar and Cambodia are still to play, and then Cambodia takes on Malaysia after. Now, Cambodia have been, perhaps for me, the most surprising of all the teams.
Bracket. They're the dark horse, I think.
That I've seen, and they are very good. They are very well coached, and they play beautiful football, which came as a shock to me and to many others.
We sort of talked about it a little bit, didn't we, in the previous episode, that under Honda's regime, they've played some really good football. They haven't perhaps got the results in the World Cup qualifiers, but I know they had a really young team. Yeah. Again, the names aren't too familiar, so I wasn't sure how many of them have come from the full national team and are now here. But it seems like whatever they've been doing with the full squad, with the full national team squad, it seems to have transmitted and translated really well to their under-22. So, no, I agree with you. I think they've definitely got potential to medal, but they've got a tough task ahead of them now.
Exactly. Yeah. They've got Myanmar, who are playing lights out at the moment as well. So that's going to be a great game actually to watch. And then Malaysia. And so if Myanmar and Cambodia, if Myanmar wins that game, I would think the Cambodia and Malaysia game will pan out a little bit more to our favor. Yeah. And essentially what I see is that Myanmar wins against Cambodia, and then Cambodia and Malaysia will hopefully play to a draw.
Okay. Yeah. So when people will listen to this, the results will already be in. So you have claimed that Philippines will qualify in the second place
through those
set of circumstances taking place.
And we get 3 points against Timor-Leste.
Okay, so while I am optimistic, and I'd love to share your optimism, my biggest concern really is if they're able to run up the scoreboard against Timor.
Okay.
Because if you actually look at the games we had, the Cambodia game where we scored late, we got the late equaliser, and in the Malaysia game there were periods of that game where the Philippines were really on the front foot, but were unable to convert gilt-edged chances.
100%.
So the concern is when you're going against a team where you need to be on the front foot, you need to be forcing the issue. Against an opponent who's obviously had some difficult results to this point, but they're not going to want to go home, with that, with 4 defeats. So I think it might give them a little incentive to at least produce something on their final outing, and with them, I don't want to say misfiring, but with them not being as clinical as they have been. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Actually, I think this year has been a case of a lot of the games. I mean, look at the Syria game, for example, with the men's national team. Loads of really good opportunities to perhaps restore parity in that game, but were unable to convert. Obviously, when Phil Younghusband has been the fulcrum of the team and been the one banging in the goals for the last 15 years or whatever it is that he played, they're big shoes to fill. Yeah. And obviously, Chima's done a great job leading the line, but as a prolific goal scorer, he's probably someone who needs someone alongside him.
Right.
Harvey's been utilised in different roles, within that team, who's been a great goal scorer at the UAP level, not really tested at this level. So that's where I think they might fall short a little bit. You're relying on Shrocky to come up with the goals. Bass came up with one of the goals, didn't he?
Yeah, that was a nice one.
It was a great finish, wasn't it? A lovely chest down. Was it from...
was it Chong?
Chong's great chest down and great finish. So, I mean, they have scored obviously in the competition, but I just feel if you're reliant on trying to get through on goal difference, it's hard. It's hard for them, I think, to try and get 5, 6, 7 goals, whatever they might need.
Yeah.
In order to qualify.
It's going to be a different kind of game. I mean, we've relied on a lot of drama over the last couple of games. I mean, getting that, 92nd, 93rd equalizer against Cambodia. Yeah. Then playing against Myanmar, I thought, there was a decent crowd out there watching that game. Justin Bass with a good goal. But then, as you mentioned, we were on the front foot. It looked like we were dominating, and then they nicked one, and we lost that game, which made the Malaysia game so huge. Yeah. And I think we were talking about how football is alive. Yeah. 6,500 people come out to watch this game. They know that there's something on the line. And the boys delivered. I mean, but they left it late, in that one. But you saw the passion again. Yeah. And this is something that we've been missing for quite some time.
Why do you think they change?
It's a tournament that is unfolding in your home ground, and it's happening. You're following the story.
Right.
It's right there. Everybody's reporting about it as well. It's not just 1 or 2 outlets, because it is the SEA Games. Yeah. And it's the only sport that's happening before the opening ceremonies. You know? I mean, at least of note. I mean, I don't know anybody who's following the polo games, you know what I mean, or the water polo games. Yeah. No disrespect to those games, but it's a little bit more relatable, the game of football, and they knew that we had our backs against the wall and that there was a part to play. There's a part to play.
Yeah.
You have to help these guys get over the line, and you can see them trying to will this team on. And it's been some time since that's happened. You know, it's harder to get your head wrapped around a World Cup qualifier, and
because it's so far in advance, isn't it? It's like, the qualifications for 2-3 years.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is going to be for qualification to the Asian. How does that work? What group? Who are we? Like, you know, they don't know the dynamics of
the format that's easy to understand.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's right here. It's the Southeast Asian Games, and everybody's kind of being, how should you say, encouraged to get behind their national teams anyway, as a whole, right?
For the games as a whole.
Yeah, the national fervor is being stirred by the media, by, you know, friends and family that, hey man, maybe we should go out, catch one of these games, you know, let's be a part of this.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first events that you could do that. Yeah. And they were rewarded with some late drama, and you saw the scenes. I mean, you saw it on social media, like
brilliant.
People waiting outside just to cheer on the team as they exited the stadium. There were flares outside chanting all out. Kenshiro Daniels was actually there. A lot of our players who are normally part of the national team got an opportunity to be spectators again. And you saw like the Ultras Filipinas cheering Kenshiro Daniels on with his own song, and it's, you know, it's an amazing experience for the people outside who have not had an opportunity, or inside the national team who have not had an opportunity to experience that side of things.
Yeah.
And it's really refreshing, honestly.
I definitely agree with you with the fact that the games as a whole has created this atmosphere, has created this buzz. And what that's led to is, if you're at home with your family and you're a football player, you're like, okay, well, I'll go down there. I'll go check it out. Yeah, I'll check it out. It's on my doorstep. I think also the novelty of it is important. So you got the familiar faces in like a Shrocky or an Aguinaldo, but I don't know anyone else.
Yeah.
Really? You know, how many of those other names do you really know? I mean, Justin Bassett has come onto the scene last couple of months.
Right.
So maybe that novelty factor is also playing into it, because, you know, you want to see these guys. You know, what are these guys all about? You don't know them. You don't know what they're like. So you want to sort of, you know, spend a bit of time maybe getting to know them as players. And then off the back of that, like exactly what you said, we had loads of my academy kids went back to the hotel just to get pictures with these guys.
Right.
You know? And I think that kind of interaction is something that's been amiss for a number of years. And I think it's great that kind of atmosphere, that kind of environment, like you used the word fervor, you know, I think that's a great word to use, because it hasn't been around for a long time. It hasn't been long for a long time. So for us to be hosting the games, for them to sort of stoke up this kind of atmosphere, I think, hopefully, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope it is the thing that propels them to at least the semi-finals.
Yeah.
On the other half of the group, it looks formidable. I mean, Vietnam looks strong.
Yeah.
Thailand have been surprisingly underwhelming, and it looks like Indonesia potentially might sneak out of that group. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. But if Philippines were to qualify, it would look like Vietnam will be the game, and that would be a real ticket. You know, that would be a great game to watch, because if anyone hasn't seen Vietnam up like sort of close and personal, they are top side.
And the amazing thing as well is the support that the opposition teams have been having, or the away teams in this regard. Vietnam versus Indonesia just happened upon this recording, and man, it looked like it was a Vietnam home game.
Right.
Like there were so many people out there. And
they travel, by the way.
Yeah, the environment was incredible, you know? So if you can imagine a semi-final, Philippines versus Vietnam, at the Rizal Memorial Stadium, there's going to be loads of fans there. There's going to be an away section that is going to be legitimate, really cheering on the Vietnamese side. It's going to be a proper football match. You know what I mean?
I want to come on to this a little bit and explore this avenue, because we had you received a tweet, didn't you, from a mutual friend in Phil Hagedorn, who's a friend of the show.
That's right.
He enjoys the podcast, and he tweeted something about Filipinos just aren't sports fans, right? And I read the tweet, and at first I was like, yeah, he's right. He's right. People just aren't passionate about sports in the same way as you were perhaps in Germany or England or some of these other countries. But then I sort of had a little bit more of a think about it, and I'm sorry, Phil, I think you're wrong. I think everybody is a sports fan. I think every country are passionate and fanatical about their sports. I mean, if we weren't sports fans, then why, when the Manny Pacquiao fight, why when he fights, the country is on complete shutdown?
Yeah. Right?
No crime. No one's on the streets. Everyone's in front of the television, huddled around watching his fight. So, no, I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I think it's about providing that platform and an avenue for, like I think we talked about it in previous podcasts, having something that's relatable and everyone can relate to getting behind their country and supporting them in the games.
Right.
Everyone can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is culminated in everyone wanting to come out and support their nation. And off the back of that, you've seen the teams perform extremely well, top of the medal count as of recording.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure about that. I don't know what your take is, but I think Philippines can be a fanatical sporting nation.
I think that's the key there. What you said is like, it can be.
Can be.
But if
what does it need to? What needs to happen then? Do you think?
Meaning, if you're looking at it from just on evidence alone, let's say if you were an alien, you came over here and you looked like, is the Philippines a sporting nation? As in comparison to other nations? No, it's not. But the thing is, it's shown symptoms or signs that it could become a massive thing. Yeah. And as you mentioned, Manny Pacquiao, there's a few pocket events that have showcased, that fanaticism that we have. Yeah. I really think it's about developing that culture, right? They saw a glimpse of it in that Rizal game where you have people singing songs all throughout the 90 minutes. And you step in there as an outsider and you're like, whoa, what is this? Yeah. Like, I've never been a part of something like this. And that stirs something in you and makes you want to replicate that again, right? And the more that people sort of nurture this culture, bring it to basketball games, bring it to volleyball games, the singing, the cheering. Let's meet up an hour before. Yeah. Let's get this going. Let's if you're of age, then maybe there's a few drinks involved to get the spirit going and enter the venue, with a loud voice and a willingness to be rowdy. Yeah. That's a potential for something that could be replicated over and over again. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. It could be something else. It could be more PG if you'd like. But do something. Try to set a trend of some sort that will allow people to want to come back, whether it be, the food that you provide. Is it novelty items? Is it, something that the organizers can do to entertain the people even more? Because the game in itself for real sporting nations is almost, a secondary thing. It's not the main event. You've come there with your family and you guys have made a day out of it. Regardless if your team wins or loses, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be an experience. And I think that's what needs to be harbored, because, just a few hot dogs outside and mediocre facilities, these are not the types of things that will want somebody to come back to these games if the games aren't good, right? So
I think the fan experience is the ultimate one here. Like, if I'm really trying to get to the crux of why Philip perhaps said that, is I think the fan experience is poor. Yeah. And it seems quite blanket across most sports. Yeah. I mean, maybe the college one is the only one that I think might be a little bit different. And maybe that's because that sort of collegiate experience is a bit different.
There's the cheers.
There we go.
The cheers, right? So there we go. Yeah. You guys are singing along to these things because you guys are from La Salle or from Ateneo, right? Yeah. And then you've manufactured this thing of Ateneo versus La Salle, and it brings out this feeling like, I have to be there. I got to support my team.
It's tribalism, isn't it?
Yeah. And there's really nothing like that in club sports right now in the Philippines, right? So that's something that needs to be actively created as well, You hate the term manufacture the culture, but there's got to be an active role being played by the teams or the supporters in order to create that atmosphere as well.
And I think also the governing bodies need to, try to, like you use the word harbour and accentuate that. Like I was hearing things about certain things aren't allowed in the stadium and stuff. It's like, oh, come on. Like, let's at least try to make it enjoyable. Like, I remember playing in Bacolod for the first time, and when they had the steel drums. And they would play it. I mean, some people don't like the drums, but I actually quite enjoyed it. Like, I remember, like, we would regain possession in an advanced area, and then you just hear boom, boom, and it just gave you that little extra lift. Do you know what I mean? And that you knew that we were in the ascendancy in that moment, because the drums started going, and then of course that creates that atmosphere within the crowd. And you know what, mate? I think the real key to this, and what I'm hoping from this particular games is the kids that have gone to watch will be inspired, one, by what's happened on the pitch.
Yeah.
Because they're not much older than them.
That's right.
They're not much older. So we have guys from my under 15s, and there's kids that are 19, 20 that are playing in the tournament. So, that sort of relatable factor, I think, is important. But also for the people who watch the games to connect with it on a fan level. Yeah. So, that feeling that you get from singing with your comrade who's in the stand next to you, or that rivalry between you and that opposition country, and you can feel that tension. And not to the point where sometimes, like I've talked with Simon Enemy about this, like sometimes with Indonesian fans it can be misconstrued and it can be kind of intimidating. Not that, because I don't think that's in the Filipino nature. It can be kind of a rivalry thing, but it can be in a more friendly, kind of jovial fashion, which I think is more in keeping with the Filipino culture.
100%.
And then, like you said, and then make it an event. The spectacle in itself in the game is just one aspect of a bigger event, which is the walk to the stadium, the smells, the sounds, the sights. That is really what the event is all about.
100%.
It's not just the game. The real event is actually all of those things that lead up to and that you experience after actual game.
You were speaking about like the Filipino nature as well. There was a lot of reports about the Filipino ultras singing all day.
Shout out to the ultras.
Amazing.
Great
amazing
people.
Support. And they've done it for the women's. They've done it for the men's. The Cambodia game, 1-1, went outside, spoke with the fans of Cambodia, had pictures with them, sang with them.
Yeah.
That's the type of thing that we want to see.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's one thing to have like an intimidation factor that Indonesia brings and other countries might provide, but we're not about that. We're not about having violence at our matches. That's not our thing. We're all there to enjoy. But to go out there and be passionate about your team, that's fine. But to come out and then enjoy the opposition supporters as well. You guys are all here for one reason. It's just to enjoy. And I think it's been really, really fun to see it come back alive. And we were mentioning in the last episode about how the Lightning was captured in the past after that Suzuki Cup triumph in 2010. And this is like remnants of that. Like you feel it. And you just got to take advantage of it. You got to keep this momentum going. Whatever happens, whether we don't make it into the semifinals or not, we've created something already.
I agree. I think that's... We'll talk about that a little bit. That's the final point that I wanted to talk about. But I think definitely football is alive. Maybe it needed a little bit of resuscitating, but it seems like the passion and enthusiasm is there.
100%.
It's just a case of, can we harness it and can we develop a few things off the back of that? But the next thing I wanted to talk about is there's talent coming through. So we talked a little bit about, although these are unfamiliar names, there are people who are starting to etch their name in Philippine folklore now. I mean, obviously, you've been commentating on the games. What have you seen in terms of the talent that's coming through from this group?
I think the first guy that pops into mind is, the drama that Dennis Chung created, right? It was like a Chifi Kaligdong type moment. You come in for 5 minutes, the ball comes to you, you don't hesitate, you hit that into the bottom corner, you take off your shirt, you run over to the bench, and everybody's going mad.
Some great pictures as well. The imagery of that goal was
it's amazing,
iconic,
right? So he's obviously he's introduced himself onto this stage. You mentioned Bas earlier, Ozoka already you've mentioned, but I want to talk about Mardiano, who's started 3 matches in defense. Not a lot of hype around him at all.
What's the story?
Mardiano from UE. I called some of his games in the UAP. I remember going back to Noel Marcaida and saying, "Do you guys know this dude?" He's like, "He's from Masbate, so of course he knows him." And I was like, "He's a proper player." You know what I mean? He's got a lot of composure that I don't normally see at that level. And then to see him in the under-22 team, I was pretty like, "Oh, nice, he's made it into the squad." But then most of the homegrown players got cut, right? There was a lot of like Ren Saldivar from FEU. There's a whole bunch of boys.
JB.
There was
JB must be disappointed.
Borlongan. That's right. I think Formiga as well. There's a whole bunch of guys that were like, okay, that's rather surprising. They didn't get on. But Diano was a guy who was still on the list. I thought he was going to start on the bench because Casambri was around. Yeah. So
I'm very surprised at that.
Yeah. So Diano comes in. I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know about if this is a good idea or not. And then, there were some nerves in the beginning, but wow, he's made himself into a proper option in that defensive position, and that's fantastic to see. You have, I think it's Eric. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Gallantes. Yeah. I've seen glimpses of him in the Copa Paulino Alcantara, so I knew what he was about, and he buzzes about, and the commitment. Every other day he's played 90 minutes. I think he's played every game, and the guy doesn't run out of steam at all.
I mean, I was alerted to him. So Steve Marcella, the former goalkeeper coach, used to be at Hibs, which was the club that he was attached to.
Okay. In Scotland,
yeah. And they spoke very highly of him. So I remember there was some articles that were coming out regarding his availability, and he was like, "No, if I was called up, I'd love the chance to play for the Philippines." And I think he'd been involved in the Scottish setup a little bit, and obviously he was quite highly thought of at the club. So I mean, and that's a good level, the Scottish Premier League. So I wasn't really sure if that was going to be a viable option. Then he came out. Obviously, he played a couple of games with the full national team, but in terms of a young, promising, attacking, positive player, I think he's someone who's got a real future. Certainly is someone who creates a bit of excitement. In the final third, he's always looking to find an opening and to create an opportunity for himself or for someone else. I think he's someone who could transition well into the full national team moving forward. So hopefully he can continue.
There was another kid, winger as well, Suba Jr. Came on, blonde hair. I was like, oh, okay, I wonder where this guy comes from. Right. And Sanbeda.
Obviously.
Yeah, Sanbeda.
Yeah.
I believe he is from Tacloban.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And he plays well. He looks like a baller for sure. Was brought in as a substitute in the first game and really changed the dynamic of that match. We didn't have much going on the right flank on that game against Cambodia. It was the first one that I got a chance to call, and he changed the match for me. I thought he provided a lot of good opportunities from the right flank and was never afraid to take on his man. Lightning pace too, so he's a guy to look out for sure. Suba,
Okay. I'm wondering what's going to happen with some of these guys, because I'm hearing that some of them are out of contract. Like, for example, Elias Modal is out of contract with his club in Scandinavia.
Okay.
Maybe he might be looking for this to be a springboard for him to get a move, maybe to somewhere here in the Philippines, or what seems to be the route for a lot of the guys at the moment, which is to go into the Thai league. Obviously there are other players that have put themselves really in the shop window. Justin Bass being one of them. I think he's he's done extremely well. So I think it's quite an exciting time for this group, and I would never want someone, if they felt as though they were able to forge a career in Europe, if that was if that was a possibility, I'd always encourage that, because I think you can always come back here. So if you're trying to play at the highest possible level, you should probably stick to trying to pursue avenues, in preferably in Europe, because I think if you can elevate your game there, when you come back and join national teams, you're able to impart some of that experience, knowledge that you accrue at playing at that sort of level. But it's always an option, should you not be able to make the grade, should you not cut it, to come back. And I think a lot of players have done that and have gone on to have really good careers.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it's exciting times for that group. I think there's definitely a handful of players who can potentially make a name for themselves in this tournament on its own.
Yeah.
And then from there, the avenues of either going and finding opportunities elsewhere or within the region. I think that would be great. And then ultimately, really, to produce players for the men's national team, because really that's what it's all about.
And to think, just not so long ago, there were a couple contingents that were not sent to the SEA Games because we didn't have a chance to win, or whatever it was, nonsense response was given as a result of us not being sent over or not being allowed to send a team over. This is the reason you have a team. I mean, we're not guaranteed to make it to the semifinals, and we're not guaranteed to medal. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
These boys have had this experience now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a fantastic thing for their career to bring forward. I mean, to be exposed to clubs in Europe and around Asia, and just this experience as a player to have that opportunity to play against other members in Southeast Asia. Get your feet wet with the national team, have crowds around, to feel that pressure in that environment. It's just unacceptable that there are governing bodies who would think that way when you're supposed to be promoting sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I think there's been so many missed opportunities within the Southeast Asian Games.
100%.
So many.
We've
had so many good teams. I remember we used to go through like prospective lineups that we could put forward in an under 23 and under 22. And it's always stacked.
Yeah.
It's always stacked with the players. Like, wow, imagine if he played at this level, he'd dominate this and that. And for me, it's always a great stepping stone for these guys. Like you said, I mean, how many of these players, like from my group, my era, like Phil, James, Ali, all came through the SEA Games.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they all competed the last time it was here in the Philippines back in 2005. You know, it's a great breeding ground. And how many of those other players? Matt Hartman, my brother. So many players. And that in itself is a great honour. You know what I mean? To represent your country at major games.
Yeah.
You know, the likelihood of the Philippines qualifying for an Olympics is obviously slim.
Yeah.
So this is as good as it's probably going to get. Or Asian Games it would potentially be an option. And that in itself is also a great... Look at South Korea. I mean, they put Son Heung-min.
Yeah.
Right? Missed games for Tottenham.
Yeah.
In order to play in it. You know, so these types of games, they shouldn't be seen as a secondary event or something that we shouldn't really be trying to compete in for this, that and the other. Normally political reasons, right? Or financial reasons. But these are great opportunities for these guys to play and represent their flag at a highly competitive level. And it should definitely not be overlooked.
Yeah, they should definitely not be robbed of that experience.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But when you talk about meddling, I think there's one group that's obviously we're sort of talking about the men's team. They've got their work cut out for them, but it's still a possibility.
Yeah. It's not in their own hands.
But it's not in their own hands. The women's team, however, very much in their hands. So that's the third point really that I wanted to go into is the women's team, they're on fire at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of their chances?
Well, they're in the semis already. Played Malaysia on the same night the men's team did, and they shellacked them.
Yeah.
That's
5-0 drop in.
Yeah. Holden got... Bolden, rather. Sorry, got a hat trick in, I think it was the first half already.
What's her story?
I believe she's an NCAA player that was brought into the Philippines to reinforce the side. Yeah. So she's obviously very talented. You see some of her finishing, and her athleticism is very much on show. But the rest of the team is a cohesive unit that is expecting. That maybe expecting is not the right word, but they know they're good enough for this. They're primed for, hey, we're not just happy to be here. Yeah. We're primed to try to get a medal. Yeah. And it comes from the coach all the way down to all the players that we're not here to, be taken in, to just take in this experience. We want to make history and we want to get our first medal ever. I mean, they've already made history by making it to the semifinals. That's never been done. Yeah. And they look like a side that, a bronze medal, a silver medal, making it into the finals is not an impossibility. Yeah.
Do you feel as though they feel as though that's not good enough? You know what I mean? Like if they make it to the semis, okay, it's an achievement, but that would not be what we're expecting.
Yeah.
If we get if we lose and we get a bronze, is that seen as success? Because the sort of the vibe I get, I might be wrong, is this team has the intentions of taking home the gold medal.
Yeah, I love it.
That's how I feel.
I love it. I love that approach. Like historically, if you look at the books, you have no business thinking that way. But I like a coach and a cohesive unit that is ambitious without being brash.
Yeah.
Like they know that they're capable of this. They played against Thailand and the likes before, and they weren't too far away.
No.
And they knew that there were things to adjust, and they've stayed together as a unit. They've gone into a couple camps together, and they're building upon fixing those mistakes. So they haven't conceded a goal yet.
Yeah.
Right?
The only thing really I would say in that's might go against them is that the lack of competition they've had in those games, because it looks like they're going to have Thailand in the semis, right? I mean, Vietnam have done well. They look like the team that's going to likely top the group in the other half of the draw. So that leaves us with the prospect of playing Thailand, who obviously we're at the World Cup. They have bridged the gap, haven't they, recently? I mean, they had the narrow defeat recently in I forget which competition it was now. But I think on home soil, given the fresh impetus that this team has with the home crowd, with the sort of this newfound confidence and just the mentality that they seem to possess right now, I think they've got a real shot at making the finals.
I hope so. You know, they've got the confidence, they've got the quality, I would say. Some of these ladies have been with this squad forever. Like, I was just looking at throwback pictures from like Natasha Alquiros, who was talking about how she was 16 years old when she went into the national team. Her roommate was Let Dimzon, the national team coach now. Yeah. She was, you had Mariel Benitez, who was there, who is now a commentator, obviously not part of the squad, but Empelido, their captain now, was part of that squad. So these are people who have gone through the ranks, who went through like a decade of starvation, essentially. You know, lack of support, being bypassed by the federation, being seen as something lesser than the men's team. And they've just plugged away and they've stayed together as a unit and they really, really believe in one another, you know. And honestly, it's a very inspiring story. Yeah. And if they make it, it's a huge statement to the federation, to the people, and what you can do if you have a vision, you stick to it, and you believe in it, and you guys work hard. These ladies work hard, and they're getting the rewards now.
I think what it's gonna be very difficult for a men's team to make a World Cup.
Sure.
Right. Just because of the numbers. Right. But I always feel as though the Philippines, if they were, and we sort of waxed lyrical about it in the last podcast about if people got the funding, then we could do so many great things. Sure. Like, but the women's national team seems to be one that's really underserved, but could achieve unbelievable recognition if they were given the right opportunities. Like winning a SEA Games medal, preferably a gold, which seems to be the target here, would be amazing. But realistically, when you think about it, we talk about population, we talk about the makeup of the country, the physical attributes that these women possess, that tempered with the fact that, again, there are a lot of Filipinos that are based abroad that are participating at an unbelievable level in the US, right? That seems to be where we are able to pull a lot of the players from. So if they're playing at arguably probably from the ages of 18 to 22, one of the highest levels that you can play on the planet, and then we've got women that are playing at that level, surely with a little bit, like you said, if you could expand that program and really cultivate that, the opportunity for them to play in the World Cup is wholly viable. I mean, Thailand were there. I mean, okay, they got absolutely caned in a few of the games, but for the women to make a World Cup, it's not that far-fetched. It would be amazing. It would be incredible, but it's not far-fetched. Just given the opportunity, given the resources, they could feasibly make a World Cup.
100% agree. And it's like when people talk about the men's qualifying for it, it's sort of like a pipe dream, you know, like, oh yeah, maybe it could be a thing, but this is tangible. They were not too far away.
Couple of games away.
Exactly. They were in the Asian Cup, you know, they did well in the AFF. Like, this is a side that is already showing signs that they can bridge that gap, you know, a little bit more support, a few players here and there, and you would really be knocking on the door in the World Cup. Yeah. And, you know, even myself, you know, I am not as informed about the women's team as I should be. And I'm embedded in the football community, you know. That goes to say that they are not being given the amount of attention that they deserve. Yeah. And I think over the last couple of years, they've started changing that. You know, and
they should, because other sports have done it really well. Yeah. Right. I mean, volleyball seems to they did it well for a while. You know, of highlighting that girls can play professional sport. Yeah. Right. And I think you need to give these girls an outlet and a viable progression. That if I'm a 14, 13-year-old girl and I want to play football, you know, what's the end game? Is the end game I could just play in high school or potentially play in college? No, you can feasibly play professional football. You can feasibly go and play with the national team at a World Cup.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what we're trying to create here also, is giving these guys a pathway that, right, okay, if I stick to this, if I can, like Natasha came on the show and talked about it, I think that's really what needs to be done, and it needs to be harnessed and give these guys the platform to really showcase not just their football abilities, but also them as personalities.
And I think we've got a golden generation right now that has experienced the hardships that you guys experienced in 2005 and that. So these guys are gritty. These girls are gritty ladies who know where they've come from, and the pathway to where they want to be is a long journey. Yeah. But they're not too far away. So they're appreciative of everything that is given to them. Yeah. I'm not going to say that, they're prima donnas in the men's team, but there are certain expectations that they have of how they should be treated. Yeah. And the women's team don't have that. They don't have that, like, that nature about them. Yeah. They're super appreciative of the journey, and I think something special is going to happen.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, you talked a little bit about sort of expectations and I want to sort of segue into the fourth topic, which is, or the fourth, what do we say, things that have stood out.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the sort of more negative things that have come out of this campaign is the fake news. Or fake news versus what is actually real.
Yeah.
You talk about the women's team experiencing certain problems, and again, it reared its head with the hotel debacle, of
Kikiam.
Yeah, Kikiam. I didn't even know what that was. It was a term that I only found out about through this supposed scandal. But yeah, that was one. And then obviously the rooms being delayed in letting the athletes go in, the teams not getting picked up at the airport or taken to the wrong hotel and stuff. I mean, you're involved in that in the media side. How much of it is fake news to create this sort of clickbait, perhaps, or how much of it is actually bona fide issues that the tournament has experienced?
I think it's been quite an interesting thing to witness, because I knew firsthand that there were going to be issues.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the stadium thing. It was never going to be ready, right?
Yeah.
Never going to be ready.
Rizal was still being worked on the day of the first match. Yeah. Right?
So my understanding of it is that teams didn't get changed in the changing rooms.
I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't the case. If that was the case.
Yeah, I heard that there was paint, with toxic fumes that made it
smelled like thinner, and there was no paint.
Yeah, we don't want anyone going out, high before a game, failing drug tests. So, but so I mean, we kind of anticipated that before, didn't we? We were saying they were still putting the roof on, like 2 or 3 days before the event.
For example, Myanmar versus Cambodia was the first men's game, right? I had the privilege of calling that match. Yeah. The signage, the LED board on the side of the pitch that throws up the advertisements, that was blank for the first half.
Right.
Actually, it wasn't. It was worse than that. They flashed something, and then it went black, and then icons came up, like a desktop, and then a cursor was like moving around, right? Yeah. So they're obviously ill prepared for this. Yeah. Right.
Which is actually in stark contrast to what we had in Binyan.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly, because Binyan was ready. Binyan had a dry run with a Copa final. Yeah. So they already were prepared for what they needed to do for the SEA Games. They enacted the whole process already, the whole protocol. So the security was perfect. The dressing rooms were done. Yeah. All of this, nothing to worry about.
Give a shout out to anyone on that one?
Ariel Cervantes, what's up? Yeah, that he was the venue manager over there. Yeah. And, obviously a good friend, and he did a great job alongside the LGU of Binyan. They were working very hard to make sure that Binyan was SEA Games ready.
Because that also received some fake news, didn't it? And I think later when it came out, they apologized because Binyan was like, well, hold on a minute. No, actually, we've got our act together. Yeah. So, while there might have been some teething problems elsewhere, we definitely had our stuff together.
That's right. And I think that's the thing, because Rizal was unready. So, because it was not ready, there was a lot of like, how dare you guys start the games with you guys are fixing the stadium on the day itself? Like, this is unacceptable behavior, right? And that kind of snowballed into this outrage, this general outrage from everybody that they're looking for holes to pick at the SEA Games preparation. Yep. And once the media sort of gets a feel of that, unfortunately, modern media is skewed towards what people are viewing right now, or what they want to hear. Yeah. And so they started doubling down their efforts on how many more outrage stories can we throw out there, right? So there was Binyan being under construction, which was not true, right? There was the Rizal football press conference area that they put out, which was unready, and they were going to host a press conference there. That unfortunately was true. Right. So there is a mix of true and not true.
Right.
But the thing is, because of the demand for this type of content, some of the journalists were no longer fact checking where they're getting these pictures. They're just throwing it out there and getting clicks. Forget about it. Whatever. We'll apologize later. Which there has been a lot of apologies coming
do you want
out.
to go through some of those?
Yeah, there was like a Philippine flag that was utilized apparently as a tablecloth. That's not true. That was a 2017 picture. Right. There was non-halal food or pork being served to Muslim members from other contingents, which is, of course, that's not going to happen. Right.
That was a really bad one.
The Kikiam situation with Coach Let, that she had a legitimate reason. She said, like, okay, she wasn't happy with what was available for her. Whether it was Kikiam or not is not really the point of that story. Kikiam is, for your benefit, by the way, it's just a snack that you get on the side. It's like a street food thing. It's like fish balls, squid balls, and Kikiam. And she's just like, oh, it's chicken sausage. I don't care if it was, whatever sausage. If it was, it could have been anything. You know what I mean? It could be a Hungarian sausage for all I care. But if it's egg, sausage, and rice, and that's it. We're athletes. So, you're going to expect a little bit more. Wow. What a backlash she got for that.
Is it just a lot of sensationalism? Like, is it just sensationalized because it's the SEA Games and because you know that if you run a story like that, it's going to create a storm in a teacup? Do you know what I mean?
I think it is.
Yeah.
But it's some of it is rooted in real things. That there was a lack of preparation. There were teams that were picked up late. There were hotels that were unprepared to take in these guests at these particular times. Was it a small minibus that picked up the Cambodia team? Yes, those are true. You cannot make these things up. So there were certain things, and they would argue that, oh, come on, it's the first few days of a big event. You're allowed to make these mistakes. I don't subscribe to that.
I think that's BS.
Yeah, because Japan, contrastly, are about to host the 2020 Olympics, and their venues are done 8 months in advance. Right? I mean, just because other SEA Games were hosted badly by Malaysia and Indonesia, they were not, how should you say? They had their own mistakes that they made, and we experienced those things. It doesn't make it correct to do it here or to allow these things.
Is that a cultural thing? Because I've heard that phrase a lot. Any organised event, like whether it be a youth league or whatever. I mean, but this is only the first week, so we'll let you wear wear a different uniform this week. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Wear the correct uniform. Right? You've had 6 months to prepare for this. What, an extra week is going to make all the difference? No. And if you needed that extra week, you should have forfeited your games, right? You shouldn't be allowed to play. And I think, like with this, I think it's a really interesting dichotomy between it accentuates all the really positive things about the Philippines, like the opening ceremony was pretty slick, right? Let's be honest. That could be any opening ceremony of any event, and it'd be like absolute top level. And everything from the production to Francis Liberian's suits, it was top notch. And that shows, and that's when I hear people like they said, they watched the ceremony and they cried, and it's like Philippines is world class, and you think that is world class, but then that's what I expect now. Do you know what I mean? That's definitely what I expect, because they're capable of doing it. So why settle for anything that's less? And when it's far under par, then I'm sorry, you deserve to get slammed and you deserve to get hung out to dry. It's
not that you're criticizing that you are unpatriotic. You know what I mean?
That was a narrative that was really pushed. And I didn't subscribe to that at all. It's something that I have fallen victim to many a time. It's like, this is not good enough. You sound like you're a bit of a moany bastard here, to be honest with you. I'm like, no, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not acceptable. You can't expect athletes to perform at a level if they're giving crap food.
Correct.
Right? You can't expect athletes to perform if they're sitting in the lobby, sitting in an uncomfortable chair for 4 hours while they're waiting for their room to arrive.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable. Don't be a gracious host by picking them up in a tiny minibus and taking them to the wrong hotel.
Yeah.
Like, sort that out.
Yeah.
Sort that out. Because at the end of the day, that sort of thing is what actually gives the Philippines a bad name.
100%.
Right? When in reality, they're capable of putting on an absolutely wonderful, wonderful games.
Yeah. And if you accept that, that's the reason why corruption is so prevalent.
Of course.
Right? I mean, that's the kind of culture that people can sweep it aside and say, it's understandable. There's just a few hitches and glitches because we're getting our momentum going for the games. It's like, no. When were you awarded the SEA Games? It's been more than a year that you've known that this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So
why are we painting it the day of the game?
Exactly.
Paint it 7 months ago.
It's this cramming culture, right? That if you complete it in the job, I mean, what is your basis for success? The games happened. The matches were played. Right? So it was a success.
Yeah.
No, that's not the way you should think about it, because then the next time you're going to do the exact same thing. There's got to be steps taken to make sure that we're improving all the time. And if you experience bad things in Malaysia and in Indonesia, then you should be already implementing those things when you're hosting it, right?
Sure.
So I don't think because it became a thing of like pro-administration and anti-administration. It became one of those things. And everybody's just throwing dirt, without keeping the main thing in mind, which is that we're trying to host the games properly.
Yeah.
And if we're going to get an opportunity to do this again, we're going to have to do it better than what we did last time.
Yeah.
That means the criticisms need to be put in place.
Yeah.
And if there's criticisms that are being thrown at these teams, like for example, one of the teams did not inform the organizing committee that they were going to arrive early. Therefore, they were picked up late. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay, if one of those things happens, then you also have to be gracious enough to not criticize the organizing committee. But because that's an opportunity to throw dirt on the other side, they've done that, and it's kind of sickening to see because everybody's just trying to lambast one another and then that it has resulted in fake news and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is get better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we're going to get onto the level of hosting Asian games and Olympics and World Cups, then we got to step up our game.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And regardless of how good the opening was, which it was fantastic, as you mentioned, right? Yeah. And we should applaud ourselves for that. Yeah. There's room for improvement for other things, right? Everything so else, we should look at ourselves in the mirror and be and really be honest with ourselves with regards to that. So. Fair play to Binyan, fair play to the opening ceremonies, fair play to the people who have done things correct. Yeah. But Rizal, there was room, for a lot of improvement.
Definitely.
The press conference room, like I said, like it looked like it was a place where you would get taken to when you're kidnapped. You know what I mean? You wake up, you're like,
it's not a good sign.
It's not a good sight, man.
No.
It looks great now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures. It looks all right.
It looks great now, but you're a week into the tournament. You know what I mean?
It's almost finished.
Come on now.
It's almost over.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Okay. But no, you're obviously involved with that side of things, so it's interesting to get your take on it. Because from an outside looking, I'm always torn with that kind of thing, because part of you is like outraged and you want to be like, come on, get your act together. Yeah. And then obviously then the narrative was pushed towards let's really get behind the athletes and then we can kind of show. And I think that's actually what seems to be the upsurge since that fake news has been about getting behind the athletes. Yeah. And everything seems to be a lot more positive. And the fifth and final thing that I want to talk about really is this the spark that can reignite the sort of passion within specifically the footballing community, and then maybe as a byproduct of that, maybe the games as a whole being the spark behind people wanting to get more involved in supporting sports teams in general. Because obviously we said in the last episode that we really hoped that getting to the Asian Cup was going to be it. Yeah. Right? Because that's the pinnacle really for what we can achieve at this moment in time, is qualifying for a competition of that magnitude. But it didn't really garner that kind of response. It didn't elicit that kind of emotion from the public or even from the media. So this seems to be doing that. Yeah. This seems to be resonating, and for whatever reason, maybe some of this fake news has part of it. Maybe it is part of it. I don't know, but it seems to be eliciting a lot of a positive, feel-good factor that needs to be harnessed. So, from someone who's you're in the commentary booth, and from someone from me being on the training field with these kids that have been to the games and they're coming out and they're so excited about it. Is this, do you think, potentially the spark that could reignite the sort of the football community into getting behind the national team again?
I think so, and I hope so.
Yeah.
They just needed to remember what it was like to enjoy a football match. And it doesn't hurt that Rizal is a little bit better now. It looks better.
Yeah.
The facilities have been improved.
Yeah.
And that is part and parcel with the fan experience, as we mentioned.
Yeah.
So there is a reason now for people to come out and to cheer these teams on. And it's about sustaining the momentum, right? I mean, after this, what is it going to be? If it's going to be club football, how do you harness that same passion for the clubs? Is they're going to be the main challenge, right? How do you get these people out and to deliver a similar experience?
Yeah.
That tangible experience of, wow, I can get behind a team and a community is with me in this.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to be about. And that's the challenge for everybody.
Yeah.
But you've been handed a huge boost, for everybody involved, myself included, who is part of a football club and handles media and marketing. This is a golden egg that has been provided to all of us that we can harness this now.
Yeah.
Granted, none of our players are part of this SEA Games squad, but the passion is there. The people are there to enjoy the game of football, and there's how many new eyes have been, set alight by these matches.
Yeah.
So the onus is on us to make it happen, to keep the momentum going.
And how do you see that manifesting itself? Perhaps in like the domestic game, like with the PFL games, for example, with the national team, like how would you like to see that be brought to the fore with those types of organizations?
Well, especially with the individuals that were involved, that's going to be easier. If they're going to be involved with clubs, so obviously you're creating heroes now.
Yeah.
Right? There are individuals that people can relate to.
Yeah.
But there's also a question mark as to what do we expect from the league next year, right?
Yeah.
So some stability would be nice, and some clear picture of what path is ahead of us.
Yeah.
Because right now that's the problem. That's the challenge for a lot of people in similar positions as myself is what is going to happen next year?
Yeah.
How many teams are going to be involved? Which teams are those, right? How long? What is the format of our tournament? These are some of the things that need to get out of the way as quickly as possible so we can lay down the road for what people can expect.
Yeah.
If I don't know what to expect, I'm sure as hell the casual fan doesn't know what to expect. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that I would really like to see. I've always been one to try to create pathways. So I look at like the Singapore League. The S League has the Lions. They play in their domestic league.
Yeah.
And obviously they happen to have that within the Paulina Alcantara Cup.
Yeah, with
most
under
recently
22.
under 22.
Yeah.
I have no idea why that isn't a regular fixture.
Mm.
Right? If we were in a position where there's a dearth of teams, there is a ready-made team right there, already available, ready to play. Right? So you can get an additional fixture. So even, let's say, for example, a Dylan De Bruyker, right?
Mm-hmm.
He can still play for Ceres.
Mm.
Right? So when the 22s play Ceres, he plays for Ceres. But when the 22s play in any other fixture, he is available and eligible to play in that game.
That wouldn't be a bad idea.
It's a great idea. It's a brilliant idea because it gives them an opportunity to then work together as a group, to play in competitive games against some really good opposition. And it then is a building block for future events, for future tournaments.
Mm.
I've seen other countries do it and they've done it really, really well. I've seen, like in England, they do cup competitions where the team's development squads participate in. And it's just about developing those pathways for the players to play competitive games. So if, for example, if it was in concurrent with the UAAP, you would, let's say all of their games are on a certain day. We play all those games midweek. We play the midweek games for those different under-22s.
Right.
And then those players who missed out, your JB Belongens and these types of players, they can play. Yeah. They can play. And they can play at a level that's comparable to what they would have in a SEA Games or with a national team. Because I think one of the biggest issues is obviously bridging that gap between college, UAP, NCAA, whatever, to the national team. The gap's too big. Those kids can't compete.
Yeah.
They can't. And if they can, it's going to take them a couple of years. Look at like Arno Almeida, for example, right? So he's now coming to the Kai's team. He's had a couple of years and he's finding his way.
Yeah.
But he's gone from UAP standout to being on the fringes of the first team with Kaya. I mean, as a player, our coach, he's a top level player. But if he'd have brought that experience further forward, if he was playing at that level at 18, 19, 20, his development would be far ahead of the curve than what it is
far now. Ahead.
Right? So all of a sudden, you're playing against Stefan Schrock. You're playing against Stoible, Ingresso in competitive games. But you can still go to school. You can still go and do represent FEU in competition. It's no problem. I just think these types of opportunities are things that can help develop from a developmental standpoint, are things that can come off the back of such events. And then because SEA Games every 2 years, you already, once this Games is over, be preparing for the next cycle.
Right.
So who are the guys who will be under 22 in 2 years' time? And
Quite
then
a
you
few.
just get those guys playing together. For me, it makes sense. Take what you've learned from the fan experience as well,
100%.
and utilize that. Some of the good things, some of the negative things to improve on, like we said earlier, creating this fan experience. Why are there no concessions at games? What are these guys supposed to drink? If you're thirsty, what are you supposed to drink at a game?
Yeah, soda, water.
But who's selling them inside the stadium?
They're supposed to be people who walk around.
But they're just the what would you call them? Like,
they're part of, how should you say, PSC people, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of them.
Right, but it's just an individual guy with a basket, basically.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm talking like actually having a concession stand.
Yeah.
A food dining area.
Mm-hmm.
Something outside the events that people can have some sort of fan experience.
Yeah.
Like you go to a Thailand game and beers outside, fun activities for the kids, stuff on a big screen. It's all part of the experience, and I think we're missing the trick there.
Yeah.
Have all these clubs got the resources to do that? No, maybe not. But I think it's up to us to try to find a way to make it more enjoyable for these individuals, because at the moment we're not fully utilizing that as an opportunity. And if we don't do it soon, like Qatar money is coming in, right? We think. So if we're not harnessing that, is that money just going to be squandered on other things which are trivial, i.e. what we talked about before, just being compliant with certain regulations for AFC. But really, we're not getting fans in through the door, which for me, again, would be indicative of dropping the ball.
Yeah.
And we call it lightning in a bottle, which I think is great. I think that we're at that point now. I think we're at that point where it's very tangible. You can feel it that something really, really positive is going on.
Yeah.
But if we don't build from it, it's just another lost opportunity.
100%. And with the women's team as well, I think we're turning a new page as well. It's not just a men's game anymore. It's going to be a women's game too.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot more potential to take advantage of, because there's going to be a lot of eyes on this women's team, especially if they perform and get that medal. It's going to be a bigger pie, a huge pie. There's going to be a lot of young girls out there who are going to be looking up to these ladies and thinking like, where's my pathway?
Yeah.
Where am I going to go? Yeah. Right. And there's going to be something that we need to provide them as well.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about that fan experience, like I said, it's like, where are we going to play? Is it going to be Rizal or is it going to be Binyan? Let's start making those agreements with those stadiums that we can utilize certain areas for these fan experiences, So I hope this is something that we can nail down right after these SEA Games. Like, there's no rest. There's no like, it's off season. Yeah. No. It's the hard work happens in December and January, February. When the season starts in March, we have to be primed. We got to be ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Because I think if we don't do it now, it's going to take another SEA Games, or it's going to take another momentous, heroic something.
Yeah.
To recreate this. And maybe I'm hoping maybe some of the people that are in charge haven't just been thinking about getting elected and then what we would do after the election. I'm hoping that people had a bona fide plan. Maybe this is wishful thinking here, but maybe they anticipated something like this happening. Yeah. Because it is such a momentous event. This the SEA Games. It's an incredible competition. I didn't do it last time. I didn't do it back in 2005, but my brother did and loved it. He said it was the most incredible experience, and it's one of the things that I really, really regret not being a part of. And to be just here and just seeing everything and feeling the atmosphere, it's incredible. So I'm hoping that they already have things in place, anticipating that something amazing would happen. I doubt it. So if that's the case, then I'm hoping that they are working double time now to be like, right, God, guys, we have got an opportunity here. Let's not squander it. Let's make sure that we don't drop the ball. Make sure that we push forward with this momentum and give, especially the Philippine football public, I think the boys and girls is a great addition. Having the girls come in is a great addition to that as well. And really, really try to push things forward in the next sort of 2 to 3 months. Because otherwise it's going to come back around and we're going to have the PFL starting and it's going to be the same old crap.
Yeah.
Right? And we can't have that, because I guarantee you, people, as soon as that season starts again, people are going to be off the back of this, be like, okay, what's the next football game that we can go watch? Okay, we'll go and watch the PFL. We'll go and watch Kaya versus Green Archers, or we'll go and watch Sarah's play against, I was going to say Global then, but we don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they go and it's a lackluster experience, if it's flat, they ain't going to come back.
Yeah.
They ain't going to come back.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but
yeah, it's challenging, you know, but that's the reason why we're here, you know. I mean, if you don't accept the challenge, who will? And that's really the way it is. People have to stand up and be counted for during these next few months. Yeah. And hopefully we're up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully we medal. You know, I think the girls have got a great chance. The women's got a great chance of medaling. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope the men's team can qualify out the group. Vietnam, I think, is the likely opponent. I think that'll be a tough one. But I'm hoping that, obviously, more than that, I'm hoping that this can be the platform to, as a springboard for the governing bodies and the powers that be to create something off the back of this momentum, and also to harness this and inspire the next generation of footballers. Because I've definitely seen that sort of twinkle in the kids' eyes who've gone and watched it, experienced it, felt it. And I'm hoping that will give them, you know, the feeling of, well, that could be me one day, suiting up for the national team.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. SEA Games. Here we go.
Well, I've enjoyed that, Jing, talking about the SEA Games. And when this episode does come out, obviously one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong. Hopefully it's me that's wrong. I sincerely hope that the guys and the girls can get a medal. And hopefully we can have a really enjoyable SEA Games campaign for all the other events as well.
I hope so too, Chris. If you like this Across the Line episode, and if you like the football content that we create, please do subscribe on YouTube and download our episodes on Apple Podcasts and listen to them on Spotify.